guys, welcome back to Bibliophile Reads. I'm Courtney and today you're joining me for my September wrap-up. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I do bookish videos here, TBRs, wrap-ups, weekly reviews, weekly vlogs, and tech things, all things Kindle and e-readers. If you are interested in this content, you want to check my channel out, feel free to subscribe. I am so close to 1,000 subscribers. I'm trying to hit that mark. Hopefully by the end of the year. So if you like what you see, hit subscribe, and you can also share my channel with somebody in your life who might also like my content. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back to watch and check in to see what I read in September. Now, today is the 28th that I'm filming this. So I am reading a book that I might be able to finish by the end of the month, but I am only including the books that I officially finished. And this month I read 10 books. And that's a little bit lower than I would say I usually read. However, I read very chunky books this month and I read no Babysitters Club books. If you're new to my channel or if you've been here, you'll know that I am rereading the Babysitters Club from the beginning of the series. I started this last July, and have been reading them pretty steadily. Some months I read a bunch of Babysitters Club books. There's nothing good that I want to read. And as I've gotten more into the fiction genre, like the contemporary fiction, literary fiction genre, I'm not reading as many of the Babysitters Club books. So I'm on book 51. I've been there for a hot minute, at least a month. And that's kind of where I've left it, but I'm still in the progress of reading them, just not as quickly as I was before. However, you didn't come for that. You came for the books that I read in September. I really think, although the number of books I read was not the highest that I've ever had, the quality was so good. I loved the books that I read this month. I couldn't be happier with the choices, and I'm looking forward to digging into my October TBR that I will post as I look into more spooky, middle grade spooky, and all of my witchy romance books that I have waiting for me. So let's get started. All right, the first book I read this month was It's Elementary by Elise Bryant. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. It was something that I was not expecting, but so glad that I read it. So this book is actually a cozy mystery, and I wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting. I picked it up because I am diversifying my reading this year, and so I loved that it had a BIPOC main character and a BIPOC author, and it was called It's Elementary. I used to teach elementary school and was a principal at elementary school, so I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. But this book is so good. It is about Mavis. If you see me looking down, I'm checking my notes on my iPad because I can't remember all this stuff, guys. I really can't. So this book is about Mavis, who gets roped into joining the PTA by a very aggressive mom who wants Mavis, a Black woman, to be the chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion sort of committee. So red flags go up for Mavis because obviously she feels they're asking her only because she's a Black woman, and she doesn't really get along with the PTA type crowd. She's not the normal, I guess the stereotypical type of PTA mom. And so she goes to her first PTA meeting reluctantly, and they happen to have a new principal this year at the elementary school. This is the kind of PTA, if you're a mom or you've seen this, where the PTA mom is super invested, and she's the president, and she is not Mavis's friend at all, but she is, I guess, a little perturbed because they have a new principal, and the old principal had guaranteed that their school would be a site for gifted students, right? Well, so essentially making their school a predominantly fancier school in the area. And the new principal has said that that's not true, and he won't be moving forward with that. So there's a conflict right at the beginning, and then Mavis sees the PTA president mom leaving the school late at night with some garbage bags. And so we spend the whole book trying to figure out what she had in the garbage bags. And the idea is that she may have killed the principal because the principal has gone missing. And so the whole book was really cute cute and fun. There's a little romance in it between Mavis and the school counselor. Mavis is a single mom. She takes care of her father. And then all the characters were just so good. So as soon as I finished this book, I was like, what else can I read from Elise Bryant? I haven't found anything else yet, but I am on the lookout. So comment down below if you know of any good Elise Bryant books that will be a good follow-up. I highly recommend that book. Then I read I'm in Love with Mothman. I picked this up on my birthday haul, and my youngest actually picked this out for me just on a lark. She does love this type of lore, and this book follows Heather, who is an influencer, and she is getting burnt out from the influencer world. So she decides to go off the grid into the country in a cabin. She actually buys a cabin, and pretty early on she finds a cryptid, and the cryptid is the Mothman. And he I want to say he injured or something. Somehow he starts in the house with her, and they start having feelings for each other, and it kind of goes from there. I ended up giving this 4 stars. This is not something I would normally pick up, but I actually thought it was super cute. It's really short. It's like 260 some pages. I am going to read the second book in October, but it was just so unexpected. The writing was super simple. I loved the formatting of the pages. So like all of it was hitting the marks for me. And it was just a really cute book. I didn't know that this book came out like 2022 or something like that. I thought it was brand new, but I really like this. I will be continuing on with the series. I suggest that book. Okay, then next I read Haunted Ever After, which was also another book on my birthday book haul. I'm actually keeping all of the witchy romances for October, but I did sink this one in because Jen DeLuca writes all of those, what is it, like We've Met, We Traveled, those types of books where the couple's like part of the Renaissance Fair or something like that. And I was like, okay, this is cute. I also was very intrigued by the size of the book, the cover, and the floppiness of the book. So very superficial reasons, but I picked it up and I decided to read it. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. And this book follows Cassie and Nick. And Cassie and Nick live in Florida, and Cassie has just recently moved to the new town that Nick lives in, and that is in Boneyard Key. And she has rented a house that has a lore with it, and the lore is that a ghost lives in the house. She doesn't know this yet, but weird things start happening. And she has a hard time with like the electronics in the home. She has a hard time with some letters that she's put on her refrigerator. They keep getting scrambled into words. And she meets Nick, who is the owner of a coffee shop that's close, and he's grumpy. She's sunshine. And he also has ghostly things happening, but he's completely invested in the ghost world, and the ghost actually talks to him. And so the ghost that talks to him and the ghost that is talking to her are related in a way. I don't want to spoil that for you, but it's a cute, witchy romance. 4 stars. I do recommend. Then, if you are new here, or if you're coming back, you'll find that I am deep in my Kristen Hanna era. I recently found her books. I read Firefly Lane. I think I heard about it on somebody's channel, and I was like, let me just go ahead and read this, and it was so good. Now, these books are chunky books, but they are so worth it. So True Colors ended up giving 4 stars, and in this book, we're following the Gray sisters. There's 3 sisters. They live on a farm with their dad. Their mom passed away when they were younger, and we follow the journey of the older, middle, and younger sister, but mostly the younger sister, which was kind of annoying for me. We have the older sister. What is her name? I want to say Daphne, but I could just be pulling things out of my, yeah, who's Daphne? Winona. Winona is the oldest. However, she's been passed up by her father long ago when she could not sort of fill the reins of her mom's feet when the mom passed away. and was not able to like manage the horses on the farm, which was really important to him. And she became an attorney. Then we have Aurora, who's the middle sister. She is the peacekeeper, and she is a housewife and mom. She enjoys that. The husband's not the best, but she's making it work. And then there's Vivienne, who is the youngest, and she is a dreamer. She's the prettiest of the sisters, as it's told, but she's all over the place. She was dating a guy from the local town. Everybody was expecting them to get married. I think he even proposed, and then she fell for the farmhand that they had hired. The farmhand was American Indian, and they began a relationship. From there, a significant event happens involving the American Indian, and suspicions start going around in the town, and Vivienne is the center of it. And so we're going, if you read a Kristen Hanna book, it's usually over years. So we start in 1979 and we're in 1992 towards the end, and man, it was so good. Vivienne was not my favorite character. And so I was a little disappointed that most of the book was about her and cleaning up her messes. That's why I got 4 stars for me. However, such a good book. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, I'm in my Kristen Hanna era, so I will be reading more books from her. But at this point, I'm really like recommending all of her books. Next up, I read Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I gave this 4 stars. And so this book was a book I had on hold at the library. It came in and I was like, immediately it skipped the line and I decided to read it. This book follows Lucy, and we find Lucy at the beginning of the story confused about a night that's very significant in which she is accused of murdering her best friend. However, she has no memory of that night or anything that happened. So we spend the whole book sort of going through her current life as she's being faced with the ridicule from the town because she was not actually charged for this. And then we also like start meeting characters that help her unfold her memory through a podcast. So a podcaster is coming to sort of, as podcasts do a true crime podcast that's restarting the sort of investigation or memory bank of this. She does have a little flirty romance with the podcast guy. However, I can never get a read on him. He kind of was scummy the whole way through, in my opinion. But as she does these interviews and like I said, is back into the town that this all happened in, her memory starts coming back, and we get to find out what happened to Lucy and her friend on that fateful night. I really tore through this book. It was so good, and I really loved the writing style. I also was like really intrigued to find out like what happened to the friend. It did get a little bit long towards the end because like at some point we just need to know what happened. And so that would be my only critique, but also another great book that I recommend. So I had a few really great books, and then I had a not great book. I read Love Off the Record by Samantha Markham. This is a book that I'd heard about and I put on hold with Libby, read it. I only gave it 3 stars. Unfortunately, this book just didn't hit for me. It's a little bit too predictable, which has been happening with me for romance, which is why I've been so invested in literary fiction. But this book follows Win and 3. They are probably 18, 19 in college, and and they're both on the paper. They're vying for an editor's job, and of course they have a hate relationship right now. It's going to turn into love. Win is a beautiful plus-sized woman. However, she's trying to get comfortable in her own skin, and she hasn't had much experience in the boy department so far at college, and so she's on an app and trying to practice those flirty skills without having anybody see her. And she does find somebody to connect with, and she thinks it's one person, but it might be somebody else. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But if you read romances, you know it's pretty predictable. It's going to happen. 3 stars. It was mid at the very, very base level of mid. And so I don't recommend it. I'm not going to be thinking about it again. I literally had to reread the book description to remind myself what it was about. But if it's your jam, go for it. Okay, then next I read The The God of the Woods. Okay, so if you watched my August TBR, there were a ton of Book of the Month Club books that I was trying to get through. No, sorry, the September CBR. There was a ton of Book of the Month Club books I was trying to get through. Spoiler, I did not get through all of them, but I got through a couple, including The God of the Woods. This book was huge in July. It was the Barnes & Noble Book of the Month, and it was on Book of the Month Club. And so I was like, okay, let's just jump in. All I knew about this book was that it was following the story of a girl who goes missing at camp in the 70s, and red flags ring off because a few years earlier her brother also goes missing. So I had a lot of in-person things this month, which if you're new to my channel, I do work from home the majority of the time, but obviously if there's in-person conferences, meetings, presentations, then I'm there. And I had one lots this month, but one of them I went to, I had to commute about 40 minutes. And so I was reading and using the audiobook for this book, which was great because this is a huge chunky book, 476 pages. And so I finished it in about 3 days, and I would not have been able to do that without Audible, or I listened to it on Spotify, excuse me. I would not have been able to do that without the audio book. Okay, so this book follows the story of Barbara, who is a camper at, what is the name of the camp? I don't even know, as a camper, and she goes missing one early morning in 1975. So as we're going through the book, we get a timeline and multiple viewpoints from everybody from her mom, her dad, her brother that also went missing, her bunkmate, her camp counselors, and some other auxiliary people like camp counselor's boyfriend and anybody that might be a suspect. And so as we're going through trying to figure out who did it and where Barbara is, we're going on a day-by-day count. So it's like day one, and this is the things that happen. It's like the interviews, the detectives. We have Yudita and Dennis Hayes, who are the detectives on the case. Yudita is a woman in the 70s on a detective case, a detective team, so you can imagine the probably discrimination that was happening. She's very young, or she looks young, and so she doesn't have a lot of credibility. So she's trying to like figure out what happened and piece this together. Detective Hayes is very supportive of her, and allows her to sort of figure out what's going on. But there's a lot of weird conspiracy stuff happening in this weird town. Barbara's parents and grandparents are part of a very rich community, right? And so they have a lot of money to hide secrets, and we spend the book trying to figure out what those secrets are. And the layers of this book are like an onion. Like there's so much going on, and the end was a little anticlimactic. As I reflect, I still gave this 5 stars because it was so intertwined and so much was going on, but not in a negative way, in a very like, you could follow it and you could see why everybody, by the time we got to 1975, why everybody was doing what they were doing. Because during the book, and we're looking at the parents, we're looking starting at the 50s for her mom and dad for when they started dating, right? And so we have all of this backstory on why certain people could be suspects of what happened. Anyway, highly recommend this book. It was so good. It is thick though, so give yourself time. Nothing wrong with doing that on audio because that was a really good fit for me. Okay, next I read the book Right on Cue by Fallon Ballard. This book is funny, and I put this on my weekly wrap up, but I literally bought this book on my Kindle, borrowed it from Libby, and bought it on my Kobo. So I was really excited about this book, and I almost bought it at for my birthday book haul at Barnes, but I did not. But I ended up giving this book 2 stars. I really did not like this book. And I have read another book by Fallon Ballard, Just My Type, and I also didn't love that one. And so I think I just have to put her down. But this book is about a screenwriter who, or a writer whose book is getting adapted to screen, and she is a former actress but hasn't worked in a while because of an issue she had with a coworker when she was a teen, Grayson West. And the issue was that she and he kissed, it didn't go well, and then rumors started spreading about her, and she could not shake that and pick up her acting career. So he is the lead for this movie. They cannot find a female lead, and so lo and behold, they ask her to do it, and then things get crazy. So the first thing, not crazy, if it was crazy I would have liked it, but things get interesting, and they find that they don't have on-screen chemistry, which is really about to tank the movie. And so they are encouraged to sort of hang out, spend some time together, and figure out their life so they can get this movie made. And they do hang out and realize they actually have a lot of physical chemistry. And so they decide they're gonna just hook up and make it a one-time thing, and then they can move on with life. We know it's never a one-time thing, and then the ball's rolling from there. So 2 stars. I think this is what I put on Goodreads. Literally the most basic of all romances, enemies to lovers, nonstop spice, but in the cheesiest way. It was so cheesy. Weird breakups, ups and downs, epilogue equals happily ever after. So not my favorite, but you know, out of the books that I read this month, I only had a couple of bombs, so that's good. All right, next up I read Between Lovers and Friends. This is by Charlene, I don't know how to say the last name, Obuobi. I'm gonna be giving this 4 stars. And this book follows Dr. Jojo, who is a sort of internet sensation giving relationship and sex advice. However, she is not very experienced at all. She actually is in love with her longtime best friend Ezra, and he just started dating her arch nemesis, so they are no longer speaking. But at a party, she meets Malcolm, who is this artsy guy ready to shower her with love, but she's a little bit hesitant in accepting that, so they decide just to have a physical relationship. But then Malcolm starts to catch feelings, so they kind of go from there. This book was pretty solid. I thought the writing was good. It was fast-paced. The end got really predictable for me, which again is, I'm going to place it on myself because of the amount of romances I've read in my life. It got really predictable. The spice scenes were top tier, so I do appreciate that. I do recommend this book, but I won't be running for another book like this, but it was still pretty good, so I recommend it. And then the last book I read, unless I finish this book in the next couple of days, is The Wedding People by Alison Espach, and I gave this 4 stars. Again, this was another one of the Book of the Month Club books that I had on my shelf that I needed to get through, and I'm so glad that I picked this up. I did not know what I was expecting. I had 0 expectations for this book, and sometimes that is one of the better reasons for picking up a book, I'm finding. So this book follows, I don't remember their names, Phoebe. And Phoebe is at a hotel in Rhode Island. We find her there in a fancy green dress. She's there by herself. We don't know necessarily why yet, but on the island that they're on in Newport, the hotel is hosting a wedding. And so Phoebe is the only guest there that's not a part of the wedding. And so she is running away for some things that I don't want to spoil, but she ends up getting befriended by the bride, which is interesting. Let me just see what's on the front flap. I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, I don't want to spoil anything. However, I'll say this. Phoebe is there for an interesting reason, and we start to unpack the reasons that she's there throughout the book. We meet her friend, who's the bride, and she is an overindulgent person getting married to a much older man. And Phoebe's a bit resentful because the man is closer to her age than the actual bride. He's handsome. And so we kind of watch that dynamic happen, and we watch this journey of a turnaround of Phoebe's sort of life and the way she feels about her life throughout the book. And it's all because of the bride. I can't explain it well because there's a lot that happens. I don't want to spoil it. You need to read it to figure it out. I definitely recommend this book. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. If you didn't pick up from Book of the Month Club, I don't know if they have a paperback copy yet, but borrow it from your library or Libby because it is so, so good. So that is what I read in September, guys. Like I said, I had a really good reading month. The books had amazing quality. They were a little bit thicker this month, a lot of literary fiction, and just a lot of great reads. So comment down below if you read any of these books recently or you want to know more about a book that I read this month. And look out for my October TBR coming up. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share my channel. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.